For the final physical geography assignment, you are going to be looking at National Land Cover Database information, and you are going to be using those data to draw some conclusions about why an area is covered with the vegetation that it is, based on what you know about things like soils and climate and geomorphology and the terrestrial biomes that you've been looking at in this particular week's material. When you turn on the viewer that you've been given a link to, this is the page that you'll come to. You'll see that there are a lot of layers here. You really only need to worry about the continental U.S. land cover layer and the Alaska land cover layer if you're using either Alaska or in some part of the continental United States. There's a Hawaii one too, and of course you're welcome to use Hawaii as well. If you go to the tabs above the layers, you'll see that the contents are there, and I think it's worthwhile noting that you can turn these layers off, and that might help you to see the position where you are later on when you start to zoom in. And you can also click on a tab up here that shows the legend. And you are definitely going to need to use that legend as you go and zoom in and start to look at things. So now what you need to do is you need to choose a place with an interesting variation in land cover. And this will be much like the climate exercise that you did much earlier in the course, where you chose an area where there was a bunch of climate variation. I'm going to choose an area with some land use variation. This is an urban area, you can see here. This is New Orleans right here, and these are other urban areas located in Louisiana. But there's a significant amount of area that is not covered with urban areas, and that's the area that I'm going to focus on. If you take a look at the map here, you'll see that there are brown areas, yellow areas, and then various shades of blue. What's going on here? What can explain these patterns that we're seeing in this raster data? And this is different from other data that we've looked at, where we've tended to look at lines of data or points of data. This is a continuous surface of data, which is given in 30 meter square pixels. Well, if we click on the legend here, we'll see that the brown areas are areas showing cultivated crops. The yellow areas are showing areas that are called pasture or hay. These are probably grassland areas because remember, we're in southern Louisiana, which is a bit of a savanna, tropical savanna climate. We also see a lot of light blue areas, which are woody wetlands, and then darker blue areas, which are herbaceous wetlands, and then also open water, too. What are we looking at here is the question. And what I want you to do in this assignment is put together things that you have learned about over the course of the semester. Most recently, you've learned about terrestrial biomes, so you know that savanna grasses are found in savanna climates. So this likely explains why we do see grasses here. But we also see this interesting pattern of cultivated ground, and you'll remember that this is an area which has a great number of distributaries in it, in a delta region. And so each of these brown areas actually shows where streams run through. The cultivated areas are the areas that are higher on the natural levees. And then behind that, we get woody wetland areas that are found in the lowland areas. So we're already talking here about hydrology. We're talking a little bit about stream landforms. We're talking about the climate type. And we could also even talk about something like soils in some parts of the country as well. Here, it's probably not so important. What I want you to do is capture an image like this just with a basic screenshot, and then make sure you identify it and tell me what this area is. And then when you're done with that, I'd like you to write an essay that describes what we're looking at, tries to explain what you're looking at, and then also has some reflection on how all the various things that we've learned about over the course of the semester have been able to come together a little bit in trying to understand land cover and how that's related to what we've talked about over the course of the semester. So that is the assignment, and again, as always, I'm happy to answer your questions.